Hi, I'm Eric Searfoss Miller, local judge, and with me today is Scott Campbell, content creator at MtGPackfoils.com.
Strictly Average MtG.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
I
I've
screwed
moved.
that up already.
No, it's fine.
All
No,
right.
it's been a few months. It's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Strictly Average MtG.com. I mean, some of my older stuff can still be found at MtGPackfoils.com when I was writing before
Absolutely.
Then. But it's fine.
Today we're going to be talking about modern Azorius Control.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Scott, tell me, why do you play Azorius Control over the other variants of Control that are available in modern?
Well, not to get too deep here, because I've been playing for pretty much since Revised. It's a cleaner mana base, so we don't have to worry about Blood Moon too much. And I find some consistency. I've been known to play Jund, one of the many three-color decks in Modern, and sometimes you'll draw a card like a Colgan's Command and not have red mana. So I don't want to run into problems like that. Plus, when I finally figured out what I was doing around Ice Age, and started figuring out how to build a Magic deck or whatever, Blue-White Control was one of the first decks I built. But that's back in the day when we had Sarah Angel and Winter Orb and Ice Manipulator. Way before we even had Planeswalkers. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, especially in a group game where you tap your Winter Orb before you take your turn and everybody's mana is tapped but yours.
Sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, well, without further ado, let's look at the deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we start off, and first off, this is probably one of the prettiest decks that we've featured so far. It's a lot of shiny, very
stay
exciting.
on brand.
You do have to stay on brand, so let's just start taking a look. So we have two Snapcaster Mages. Now, a lot of times, I'll see the full four in Control decks, especially the Jeskai Control list. Why only two?
We're not unlike the Jeskai Control decks. We're not flashing back a lot of spells. Matter of fact, with these two and one other creature we'll get to in a moment, you'll see that there's not really a lot of combat math going on in the deck there. And some of our spells, we may want to flash them back every once in a while, like Path to Exile, Cryptic Command maybe, or even opt to find a Terminus on their turn. But we're not really a flashback type of deck, so to speak. There's a lot of our bigger spells do more work than like the Jeskai Control deck, flashing back, burn spells and pass and all that.
That makes a lot of sense. Moving on, we've got a 3-2 split. Jace, the Mind Sculptor, recently unbanned.
Yes.
And Teferi, the Hero of Dominaria. How good has this little 5-drop standard card been?
It has been really good.
Which would you honestly say would be the better card? Obviously, you have 3 Jaces over your 2 Teferis. Is Jace better than Teferi?
It kind of also depends on the situation. Like in situations where I may have used some of my counter magic already or some of my removal and I might need a little more, Jace really comes into play, especially if I can have or keep the board stabilized enough to where he doesn't pose a threat outside of just a card advantage from his Brainstorm ability. So I wouldn't say he's better than Teferi. Mainly because Teferi is kind of like a 3-drop Planeswalker because you get the untap 2 lands after you play him and plus him.
That is pretty good. Moving forward, we have Terminus and Path to Exile, and a little bit extended in this concept, the Cryptic Command. This is your creature control package right here, and I see this guy poking out over here.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about him in a few minutes.
Yeah, we will.
But Terminus and Path to Exile, so this puts you strictly into the Miracles build of Control.
Yes.
So explain to me the Miracles mechanic real quick.
The Miracles mechanic, what happens is when you draw a card from the top of your deck, if you have a card like this that you're drawing, and it's your first card you've drawn for the turn, not just necessarily your turn, but also your opponent's turn, you may choose to place the Miracle trigger on the stack. What that means is that that card, from a game mechanic sense, is in your hand, but has not touched your hand at that point.
Okay.
You can choose to reveal that card before placing it with the rest of your cards in your hand, and that triggers on the stack. If that trigger resolves, you may then pay 1 white mana instead of course 6 to cast that spell. And this miracle ability here also breaks timing rules. So, say
Even
if
though
you're-
it's a sorcery, you're allowed to cast this during your draw step.
yes, or even
Your
if
opponent.
I draw a card, say you attack me with a bunch of goblins, as you're known to do, I could cast Opt. Look at the top card of my library. Oh, it's Terminus. Then I will place the Miracle Trigger on the stack, and then cast that for 1 mana to remove your goblins.
Awesome, awesome. So we have 4 of those, a very powerful card in the deck.
Yes.
4 paths. We have 3 cryptic commands. Now, I have been known to say the cryptic command is the best blue spell ever printed. Why are you only running 3 of the best spell in your deck?
Well, since they unbanned Jace, it's hard to have so many 4-drops that require multiple levels of blue.
That's actually super reasonable.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room at the end for 4 cryptic commands.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving forward, 4 Opt, 3 Serum Vision. Opt, a very recent addition to Modern as well. It was printed in Exile.
Yes.
Serum Vision's a staple for a long time. And there's not a whole lot to say about those. Those are pretty boilerplate cantrips, I'm pretty sure. Then we're moving over. We have 2 Logic Knots. I really like Logic Knot. Talk to me about that card, though, a little bit.
It is the closest that we're going to get to Counterspell right now in Modern. However, like you mentioned, with Opt being recently printed, along with the next card we'll talk about, Search for Escanta, and Teferi Hero Dominaria, there have been some cards released in Standard that have actually kind of pushed blue-white control in this direction. So maybe we'll get Counterspell later, I don't know. But this card, while we don't fill up our graveyard as heavily as Jeskai Control, it still can be useful even to tap some of your excess mana and still go into your graveyard for other cards to help with the delve cost.
And since you only have the 2 Snapcaster Mages, delving is not as big of a cost for you as it would be for another graveyard-based control deck.
Exactly.
Same thing here. We've got Search for Escanta. Again, standard all-star right now. I like that there are so many standard legal cards in your modern control deck.
It's great.
That really attests to the power of cards that are being put into the standard format. It does what it does. It's pretty boring. I don't really want to go over it again.
It's not boring. It's great.
Let's look at this lovely pile of 1-ofs. We have Timely Reinforcements in your main deck. I see 1 in the side as well. Is that your concession to basically the fact that burn is rampant and tier 1 in this format?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't find it because I only have the 2 total overall. But if I do find it, those reinforcements are very timely.
Very good, very good. Then we have the Detention Sphere, another control staple.
Yes.
Targets a creature, exiles it, and all creatures that share a name. Very good against token strategies. You have your 2 boilerplate counter spells. You have a Negate and a Mana Leak. I love Mana Leak.
Yeah, I wish we could play more of Mana Leak, but it's one of those spells where if you do play it and it works, great. It's awesome. Sometimes you need to use that in a chain of counter spells to win a counter war as well.
Absolutely. I'll get to this in a second because I really want to talk about it. But Vendilion Click, another control staple, looks at your opponent's hand. You get to rip a card out of it. You can also, if I remember correctly, target yourself.
Yes, that's one thing a lot of players, especially newer ones, may not understand, is that it comes into play, has a trigger. That trigger has to resolve. If they lay down their hand and they haven't been chosen yet, they could be revealing information they don't want to. So they need to pay attention to those triggers.
And then we have Oust, which we saw on stream today.
Yes.
Very powerful magic card. What does Oust do?
Oust takes the target creature, puts that second from the top, and then the controller of that creature gains 3 life. It is sorcery speed, so it's a little slow, but there may even be times like against Burn, say if you have a Snapcaster Mage on the board and you really need to gain some life, you can target your own Snapcaster Mage and put the creature into your library again.
Well, it seems very exciting. Let's go down, look at the mana base. We have 7 basics, 1 Ghost Quarter, and we have the full 4 Field of Ruin on top of that Ghost Quarter. Are you worried about non-basic lands?
Very much so. Creature lands, Valakut, I really do not like playing against the Valakut matchup, and Tron lands.
Okay. Then we have 2 shock lands, 2 check lands, the true Tundra.
Yes.
Prairie Stream. We have 4 fetches, 4 Celestial Colonnade, blue-white control powerhouse. Absolutely love that magic card. This seems like a pretty standard mana base to me.
Yeah, I was at 6 island, but I was noticing I was lacking white sources, so I cut an island for a Prairie Stream. Plus, there are times where if you're about to cast Jace or Teferi, and you need an extra land, if you were to fetch with the Flood Strand and maybe get a Hallowed Fountain or something, you're losing additional life. So this way you only lose 1 life if you got a couple basics in play.
Seems pretty good. All right, let's look at the sideboard. We have Stony Silence, obviously, for the artifact decks.
Yes.
Pretty boilerplate. Dispel takes care of instants. We'll get to this. Don't worry. I see this.
Yeah.
I see this wheel.
No, I see what's going on.
Surgical Extraction is your graveyard strategy.
One of them, yes.
Really? No, I'm looking. Oh yeah, Wheel is the other one.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, where's the other one? Oh, I forgot. We're going to talk about Wheel.
Yeah.
Baneslayer. I love Baneslayer as like a finisher. Even though I feel like there's probably better options, this is just a classic finisher for.
Ever since M10.
Yep. Again, standard cards, seeing play in Modern, Settle the Wreckage.
Yes.
Very strong, very powerful. Timely reinforcements we talked about earlier. Crucible of Worlds. What's going on here?
Well, with some of the big mana decks that are still surviving even post Assassin's Trophy, I want to make sure that if there's ways to keep them out of their mana, I can do that with Crucible Worlds, Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter. Having these 3 cards
That
will
feels
help keep
very
Tron
powerful.
down. If you let Tron take too many turns, they will just win, regardless of what else is in the deck.
Then we have another Negate, a Disdainful Stroke,
Yes.
Celestial Purge. What's Celestial Purge's primary target?
Things I've targeted mostly opposing Liliana planeswalkers. Bedlam Reveler is another big card. Those are 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Blood Moon is another one.
And then let's bring it back up here. And I'm gonna ruin my little thing that I've made.
Yeah.
And we're gonna put this Wheel of Sun and Moon. Read to me, Wheel of Sun and Moon.
Wheel of Sun and Moon. It costs 2 Selesnya mana, so it can either be white or green. Obviously, I can only make 2 white. When this comes into play and resolves, I enchant a player. If a card would be put into enchanted player's graveyard from anywhere, instead that card is revealed and put on the bottom of that player's library.
That is hilarious. I love that card. That is a hilarious way of dealing with graveyard shenanigans, and it's very good against the current stuff.
Absolutely, especially with Dredge. Plus, I have a lot of instants in my graveyard that I may want to use with Snapcaster Mage. I don't want to lock myself out with Rest in Peace.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking about this deck with me.
Thank you for having me do this.
Do you have any final comments?
One thing to keep in mind when you're fetching with the deck, using Floodstrand, you probably want to prioritize getting Hallowed Fountain first, or maybe even an opening Prairie Stream if you need that. The Field of Ruins can be used as additional fetch lands to get your basics. Sometimes you can wind up activating Field of Ruin and not have any basic lands to go get, which can kind of be a feel bad. So just something to keep an eye out for that. But definitely get lots of practice. Be very patient. Try not to be aggressive with the deck because you're trying to prevent your opponent from winning the game until you can win the game.
All right. Well, again, thank you for watching this Deck Tech. My name is Eric Searfoss Miller.
And I'm Scott Campbell, also known as MTG Pack Foils on Twitter.
Yeah, thank you, Saffron Olive. And we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.